I'm Willow Carter, 45 years old, a woman who has spent more time under car hoods than at holiday tables with candles and polished silver. At this age, you'd think losing your place in the family wouldn't hurt anymore. You'd think the skin thickens, the heart learns, the soul stops expecting softness from the people who've already hardened themselves against you. But pain, real pain, doesn't check your age before sinking its teeth in. The day everything shifted, I was in my garage with grease on my hands and cold November air biting at my neck. The kind of cold that slips under your shirt, settles in your bones, and reminds you winter is always coming, whether you're ready or not. The old pickup truck I was working on had its hood open, like a patient waiting for surgery. My wrench clicked into place. A rhythm I'd learned long before I learned how to navigate people. Machines make sense. They break for a reason. They tell you what hurts. They don't pretend you're the problem. My phone buzzed on the metal cart beside me. Mom. I wiped my hands on an old rag, took a breath, and answered. Willow, she said, her voice smooth and practiced, the kind she used when she was about to say something cruel, but wanted it to sound pretty. We've decided it's better if you don't come to Thanksgiving this year. The wrench in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I just listened. She continued, Ava wants her boyfriend to make a good first impression, and, well, having you there might make things a bit awkward. You understand, right? There it was. Not a question. A sentence wrapped in silk, meant to feel gentle, but sharp enough to draw blood. I swallowed. So, you're uninviting me? Don't make it dramatic, Willow. We're just trying to make things smooth for your sister. My sister. The golden one, the perfect one, the one whose life my parents treated like it was a collectible showpiece. Perfect dress, perfect curls, perfect smile. I used to think it was love. Later I learned it was branding. I stared at the concrete floor, oil stains shaped like continents under my boots. I see, I said finally. There was nothing else to say. Good, Mom replied, relieved. I knew you'd understand. And then, click. The call ended. Just like that. No warmth, no hesitation, no guilt. I stood there, phone in hand, the garage suddenly too quiet. Even the heater seemed to lower its hum, like it didn't want to interrupt the moment. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. At 45, you learn how to hold your heartbreak privately, like a secret you don't want the world to see. I slid the phone into my pocket, picked up my wrench, and went back to work. My hands moved, but my mind didn't. I kept hearing her voice. Having you there would make her look bad. Those words settled into my chest like cold metal. After I finished the truck, I washed the grease from my hands, locked the garage, and went inside my small, quiet house. The silence felt heavier than usual, like it knew something had just been taken from me. That night, I made myself a cup of tea I didn't drink, sat on the couch I rarely used, stared at the walls I painted myself, and wondered, when did my presence become a burden? When did the people who raised me start treating me like a stain they needed to hide? I didn't know. But the next morning, I would find out just how deep that poison ran. I had barely opened my eyes when someone pounded on my front door. Hard, violent, the kind of knock that wakes up every instinct you've ever buried. The cold on my porch that morning felt different. Not like winter, like warning. My family stood there, My mother, my father, my sister Ava, and the boyfriend she had polished her whole life around. Their breath fogged the air, their eyes sharp with accusation. As if I had wronged them, as if I had betrayed them, not the other way around. But it was Logan, the boyfriend, who broke the script they had rehearsed. "You're the Willow Carter who restored that '72 Charger?" he asked again, eyes bright, almost starstruck. No one had ever looked at me that way in my family's presence. Admiring me. Not them. Not Ava. Me. Ava snapped her head toward him. "She just fixes cars," she said, voice tight with disbelief. He shook his head. "No, she builds them, restores them. There's a difference." My father scoffed, like the idea of me having skill was offensive. "You're joking," he said. But Logan wasn't joking. He was watching me like I was someone worth knowing, worth listening to. And that cracked something in my family's perfect little hierarchy. My mother rushed to regain control. Her face tightened into a smile that fooled strangers, but never fooled me. "Well, that's very nice," she said, "but it doesn't change anything. We came because we need to talk about responsibilities." That word again. Responsibilities. For 45 years, responsibilities were the chains around my ankles, the currency my family extracted from me. They didn't ask for emotional support. They took it. They didn't appreciate my labor. They expected it. My father cleared his throat. "The roof is leaking again. We need you to take a look today." Ava jumped in without hesitation. "And I need money. Decorations for a holiday event. You know how important it is. Can you transfer it by this weekend?" I stared at her. "You're asking me for money?" I said softly, "after uninviting me from Thanksgiving?" She rolled her eyes, offended that I dared connect the two. "Oh my God, Willow, don't be ridiculous. This is separate. I can't show up with cheap decorations." Separate, cheap, ridiculous. All words they used when they wanted to shrink me back into the space they built for me. My mother rushed to regain control. Her face tightened into a smile that fooled strangers, but never fooled me. "Well, that's very nice," she said, "but it doesn't change anything. We came because we need to talk about responsibilities." That sentence used to control me. But today, it felt hollow, like a spell that no longer worked. Logan's gaze cut between me and them. "You're serious?" he said quietly to them. "After everything you just said to her?" My father barked, "This is none of your concern." Logan didn't retreat. He looked at me again. "Is this normal for them?" he asked, and for the first time, I didn't hide the answer. I didn't need to. Ava groaned, waving away the tension with irritation. "Can we focus? Willow, I need the money. Dad needs the roof fixed. Just say yes. Don't make us look stupid." There it was. The real concern. Not love, not connection. Image. Something inside me, something old, tired, patient, finally rose to the surface. "No," I said. The word fell quietly from my mouth, but it landed like a hammer. My mother blinked. "What did you say?" I straightened my shoulders, feeling something settle inside me. I said, "No. I'm not fixing the roof. I'm not paying for decorations. Not anymore." Silence cracked across the porch. My father stepped forward, towering, trying to intimidate me like he used to when I was younger. "After everything we've done for you?" I met his eyes. "You raised me. That was your job, not a debt I owe forever." Ava scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being done." My mother's voice rose, sharp. "We fed you. We clothed you. You owe us respect." "I owe you honesty," I replied. "And the truth is, I'm tired of being your repairwoman, your wallet, your excuse,
Your shadow. A gust of wind swept across the porch, scattering dead leaves around our feet. Even nature seemed to pause, listening. Logan exhaled, almost relieved. "Good for you," he murmured. Ava spun toward him. "Why are you taking her side?" He didn't hesitate. Because she isn't wrong. Something, the balance of the entire Carter family, shifted, cracked, tilted. My parents' faces turned stormy. Ava's eyes glistened with indignation. "You'll regret this," my father spat. But I wasn't afraid. At 45, regret feels different. Quieter. Truer. "I regret letting it go on for this long," I said. I stepped back, one hand on the door. "Leave." They didn't move. Not until Logan stepped back, toward me, not them. That broke their last illusion of control. My father muttered curses. My mother stiffened. Ava stared at Logan like he betrayed her entire bloodline. They walked away in a thunder of angry footsteps, slamming car doors, snow swirling around them as they disappeared into the cold. I stood there watching their silhouettes dissolve into winter. My breath steadied, my pulse slowed, my heart unclenched. A line had been drawn, not in anger, but in clarity. For the first time in my life, my parents did not get to decide who I was. I did. And that truth was warmer than any Thanksgiving table I'd ever sat at.
Christmas Eve arrived with a kind of quiet that only winter knows how to make. Soft, heavy, patient. Snow stacked itself against the garage doors, and the heaters hummed like old friends trying their best to keep up with the cold. Inside my garage, warm light spilled across the concrete floors. Not cold fluorescent light, not the harsh glare my childhood home loved so much. No, this was amber, soft, alive. I had strung the lights across the beams myself, taped the cords down, fixed every bulb that flickered. I trusted machinery more than people, so I made sure everything worked. The tables were full. Mr. Bennett told stories about delivering mail in blizzards and outrunning dogs the size of ponies. The teens from the shelter teased each other over burnt dinner rolls. Little Lily kept running between tables with a cookie shaped like a very confused star. Tasha, God bless her, hugged me so tightly at one point I thought she might crack a rib. It wasn't a curated holiday. Not polished, not perfect. It was real. And for the first time in my 45 years, I felt something like belonging. Not because I was useful, not because someone needed something, but because people simply wanted to be near me. I was reaching for more hot cider when the garage door rattled, hard enough to shake my bones. Every conversation stopped. The music died. Even the heaters seemed to pause. Before I could move, the doors were shoved open, and winter slammed into the room like it was angry too. And then the voices came. My mother, my father, my sister. Their silhouettes cut through the wind, and when they stepped inside, their eyes burned. Not with sadness, not with hurt, with rage. My mother's voice tore through the air. "You humiliated us." Every head in the garage turned. She jabbed a finger toward me. "Do you know what your relatives are saying after you abandoned Thanksgiving? After you told them lies about us?" Lies. I felt the word settle in the pit of my stomach like ice. My father stepped forward, face red, jaw tight. "You think you're better than us now that you have your little garage and your followers?" Followers? As if the handful of local people who admired my work were a cult I'd created. But then Ava stepped out from behind them, mascara streaked down her cheeks,
coat dusted with snow and fury glowing through her bones. "Logan left," she spat, voice cracking. "He walked out on Christmas. He said he needed space from my family and from me." She glared at me like I'd stolen oxygen from her lungs. "This is your fault." A thick silence spread. The teens stared. Tasha picked Lily up protectively. Even the heaters dared not interrupt. I took a breath. "I didn't make him leave." Ava's voice shot up an octave. "You took him from me." Before I could answer, a voice came from behind them. Ava scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "I'm being done." My mother's voice rose, sharp. "We fed you. We clothed you. You owe us respect." "I owe you honesty," I replied. "And the truth is, I'm tired of being your repairwoman, your wallet, your excuse, your shadow." A gust of wind swept across the porch, scattering dead leaves around our feet. Even nature seemed to pause, listening. Logan exhaled, almost relieved. "Good for you," he murmured. Ava spun toward him. "Why are you taking her side?" He didn't hesitate. "Because she isn't wrong." Something, the balance of the entire Carter family, shifted, cracked, tilted. My parents' faces turned stormy. Ava's eyes glistened with indignation. "You'll regret this," my father spat. But I wasn't afraid. At 45, regret feels different. Quieter. Truer. "I regret letting it go on for this long," I said. I stepped back, one hand on the door. "Leave." They didn't move. Not until Logan stepped back, toward me, not them. That broke their last illusion of control. My father muttered curses. My mother stiffened. Ava stared at Logan like he betrayed her entire bloodline. They walked away in a thunder of angry footsteps, slamming car doors, snow swirling around them as they disappeared into the cold. I stood there watching their silhouettes dissolve into winter. My breath steadied, my pulse slowed, my heart unclenched. A line had been drawn, not in anger, but in clarity. For the first time in my life, my parents did not get to decide who I was. I did. And that truth was warmer than any Thanksgiving table I'd ever sat at.
After they left, the storm outside seemed louder for a moment, like the wind was trying to fill the silence my family had always occupied inside me. No one moved right away. The teens stood frozen, plates in their hands. Tasha held Lily close, her eyes flicking from the door to my face. Mr. Bennett's hand tightened around his cane, jaw clenched like a man who'd seen too much already in one lifetime. Then slowly, the air shifted. I could feel it. The weight my parents carried into the room slid out with them. Logan was still standing near the door, his coat dusted with snow, his breath visible in the faint chill that had followed my family in. He looked at me with a softness I wasn't used to receiving from anyone, let alone someone connected to my sister. "You really okay?" he asked again, more quietly. I let the question sit for a moment. 45 years of answering "I'm fine" when I wasn't, of patching my own cracks in secret, of bleeding where no one could see. And for the first time, I realized I didn't have to lie. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but I feel lighter." He nodded, like that was enough. "Good," he said. "Light is a good place to start." Tasha stepped forward, shifting Lily to one hip. "You don't owe them anything," she said softly. "Not your roof work, not your money, not your peace." Lily, barely old enough to understand, laid her little hand on my arm. "Are you sad?" she asked. I gave her the gentlest smile I could manage.
I was, I said, but I think I'm okay now. She nodded solemnly, as if I'd just given her an important answer she'd remember later in life. Mr. Bennet cleared his throat and lifted his glass of cider. Well, seems to me we got interrupted in the middle of a good meal, and I, for one, am too old to let people like that ruin my dinner. A small wave of laughter rippled through the room.
Lily crawled into my lap, clutching her stuffed bear. Marcus was already trying to stack the deck. Mr. Bennet was insisting he remembered the rules better than all of us, despite getting them wrong every single time. Tasha handed me a mug of hot cider. The garage lights homed above us, soft and steady. This was home. Not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. As we started the game, my phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't reach for it. I didn't even wonder who it was. For the first time in my life, other people's expectations didn't pull me away from my own joy. But later, when everyone had settled into their jokes and accusations, I glanced at the screen. A single message from my father. "We miss you." No apology, no accountability, just the tug of the old chain. A year ago, that message would have broken me open. Tonight, I turned the screen off and slid the phone aside. Logan noticed, but he didn't ask. "Your turn," he said softly. I picked up my cards, feeling the warmth of the room settle into my bones, feeling the quiet certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. You see, healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as ignoring a message that once had the power to destroy you. Sometimes it's choosing to stay where you're valued. Sometimes it's whispering to yourself, "I deserve better, and I'm building it." So, if you're listening to my story right now and a part of it feels familiar, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You don't have to shrink so others can shine. You don't have to earn love by sacrificing yourself piece by piece. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to choose boundaries. You are allowed to choose yourself. And when you finally do, the world doesn't end. It begins. If you've ever walked away to save your own soul, you already know. That first step is the hardest, but it's also the most powerful thing you'll ever do. And I promise you, on the other side of that step, life finally feels like yours. Like a spell breaking. People returned to their seats. Chairs scraped, forks clinked, conversations quietly restarted. No one pretended nothing had happened, but no one let it define the rest of the night either. That's the difference between family you're born into and family you choose. One demands you hide pain to keep their image clean. The other pulls up a chair and makes room for it. I walked back to the table, poured myself fresh cider, and took a seat between two of the teens arguing over who'd burned the rolls more. "Definitely Marcus," I said, taking a bite. He gasped, "Hey, you're supposed to be neutral." "Neutrality doesn't apply when the evidence is this strong," I replied, deadpan. They burst into laughter, and I felt something unclench around my heart. Not all the way, not yet, but enough. Logan helped serve seconds, refilled cups, fixed a loose string of lights without being asked. He laughed easily with the others, but his eyes kept finding mine, not in a way that demanded anything, just checking in, gently, quietly. At one point, he stood near my workbench, fingertips resting on the old metal surface. "You did all this?" he asked, looking around. I nodded, piece by piece. He smiled.
then there's nothing they can take from you. They didn't build any of it. I watched the people in my garage, the mismatched chairs, the thrift store plates, the sticky table where someone had spilled gravy and tried to hide it with a napkin. My parents had left as if they were walking away from a disaster, but all I saw was life. Imperfect, honest, mine. By the time the night ended, Lily was asleep on Tasha's shoulder, the teens were packing leftovers into mismatched containers, and Mr. Bennett was putting on his old hat, insisting he didn't need help to the car, while obviously needing help to the car. Logan took his elbow anyway. "I've got you," he said. Mr. Bennett grunted. "I used to carry mail through blizzards, you know. I don't need escorting." "Of course not. Then you're just walking me to my car." Mr. Bennett gave a reluctant smile, and they disappeared into the snow together. I stood inside the door for a moment, watching them through the small glass window. Logan handed him into the passenger side gently, then turned back toward the garage. Before he left, he walked over to me. The garage was quieter now, only the soft hum of the heaters and the occasional pop from the old space heater in the corner. "You built something good here, Willow," he said. "Don't let anyone make you question it." I nodded, unable to do more. He hesitated, then added, "If you ever need anything, or just want someone to remind you you're not crazy, I'm around." I huffed out a quiet laugh. "I might take you up on that." He gave me a small nod, then stepped back into the cold, pulling the door shut behind him. And just like that, the night belonged to me again. I looked around at the garage, the empty plates, the crumbs, the half-finished cups of cider. Instead of feeling tired, I felt full. Not of food, of something I'd spent years looking for in the wrong place. Belonging. In the days that followed, the silence from my parents didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. Space to breathe. Space to work. Space to see who I was without their constant commentary. Work at the garage picked up like the universe had been waiting for me to cut that last cord. People came in with more than car problems. They came with stories, with questions, with quiet gratitude. The teens showed up that Saturday for their usual lessons. Not school lessons, life lessons. How to check your oil, how to change a tire, how to tell when someone is using you. Tasha and Lily brought a thank you card drawn in crayon. My name was spelled wrong, but I'd never seen anything more beautiful. At night, I slept better. No late-night calls from my mother demanding help. No messages from my father about bills he'd forgotten. No last-minute crises that somehow always landed in my lap. January settled in with its dull gray skies and icy mornings. I kept showing up to the garage, turning on the heaters, opening the big doors, letting the world in on my own terms. Sometimes I caught myself reaching for my phone, half expecting a message from them. Not because I wanted it, but because habit is stubborn. None came. Instead, customers sent photos of restored cars. Teens sent text messages thanking me for rides, for food, for advice. People online shared my work, praised the detail, the care, the craft. I started seeing my name next to words I'd never allowed myself to claim. Artist, expert, builder. Not just helpful, not just handy, not just responsible. A year later, I stood outside my garage, watching snow drift gently under the streetlights. The windows glowed warm from the inside. Laughter echoed faintly through the door. Someone had put up a crooked sign near the entrance.
If you're here, you're family. No blood relation required. I didn't put it there, but I left it. My life wasn't perfect. The past didn't vanish. The hurt didn't dissolve, but it didn't own me. Not anymore. I no longer chased a seat at a table that had never really wanted me there. I built my own table. And somehow, without begging, without bending, without shrinking, it filled itself. If you've ever had to walk away from people you love to save yourself, let me tell you this. You are not selfish. You're rebuilding. You're not heartless. You're healing. You're not alone. You're just finally choosing yourself.
A year after everything happened, I found myself standing outside my garage on another quiet winter evening. Snow drifted in slow circles beneath the streetlight. The sky a soft gray blanket stretching across the horizon. The cold bit at my cheeks, but I didn't pull my coat tighter. For the first time in my life, the cold didn't feel lonely. Behind me, the garage glowed warm, golden light pouring through the windows, laughter echoing faintly through the walls. Someone inside had burned cinnamon rolls again. Someone else was insisting they weren't burnt, just extra caramelized. A lopsided wreath hung on the door, courtesy of the shelter kids. And every time I saw it, I smiled. This place, this space, this messy, imperfect, beautiful home, I built it. Not for approval, not for validation, not because someone ordered me to. I built it because something in me knew, long before I was ready to admit it, that family doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it grows from shared meals, shared stories, shared vulnerability. Sometimes it walks into your life in work boots and asks if you need help lifting an engine. Sometimes it's a group of kids who call you Miss Willow because they don't know what else to call you, but know you feel safe. Sometimes family is chosen. I took a slow breath, letting winter fill my lungs. A year ago, I would have given anything to be invited to my parents' table. I would have driven across town at midnight to fix a pipe. I would have lent money I didn't really have. I would have said yes, even as my bones screamed no. I didn't know then that a life lived for other people eventually becomes a life you don't recognize. Now, I can't imagine going back. One of the teens, Marcus, poked his head out the garage door. "Miss Willow, are you coming inside? We're starting the card game without you." I raised a brow. "Which card game?" "The one I'm definitely going to win," I said. "You've never won a game in your life." He laughed and disappeared back inside. I waited another moment, watching the snow drift and swirl. I thought about the girl I once was, the one who tried so hard to earn affection by being useful, the girl who thought being needed meant being loved, the girl who didn't know how to say no. I realized I hadn't thought about her in a while, and when I did, I didn't miss her. I stepped back toward the garage, opened the door, and felt the wave of warmth hit my face. People were already arguing, already laughing, already calling my name. "Willow, come here, we saved you a spot." "Don't let Marcus cheat again." "I didn't cheat." "You absolutely did, your face gave it away." I shook my head, smiling as I took off my coat and hung it on the peg by the door. This peg used to hold my old oil-stained jacket. Now it held coats belonging to people who loved being here, people who weren't using me, people who weren't keeping a tally of what I owed them. I walked toward the table. When the garage door rattled in the wind, my heart skipped, out of instinct more than fear. For years, a knock at the door meant trouble, demand, sacrifice. something they wanted. But I changed. People didn't get to take from me anymore. They only got what I freely gave. "Everything okay?" Logan asked from his spot by the counter. He'd been helping the kids fix a broken electric heater. He wiped his hands on a towel and looked toward the door, alert. "Just the wind," I said. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Logan had become a steady part of my life, not necessarily romantic, not necessarily defined, but present. He came around often, helped with projects, shared meals, listened more than he talked. He never asked for anything, never assumed anything, and somehow his presence didn't take space from me. It added space to me. He lifted one corner of his mouth. "Ready to lose at cards?" "In your dreams," I said. We joined the table,